This episode and every episode is sponsored by my company, JDAQA Software Testing. We're your one-stop shop for manual, automated, performance, and security testing. Check us out at jdaqa.com. And with that, let's get on with the show. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first customer podcast. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Miss April Burks. How you doing, April?
Hi, how's it going? I'm
It's
good.
good. Founder of Pink Social Strategies. We were talking a little bit before, and you've got a pretty cool story about how you started, maybe a little bit of a pivot that you've done since then. We'll get into. So tell me a little bit about your background. Where'd you come from? Where'd you go to school?
So I was born and raised here in Philly. Um, Grew up most of my life down by South Street and Society Hill since I was 9. Before that, I lived in West Philly. Um, I, I mean, if you want to start way back, I went to grade school in West Philly, and then I
Okay.
switched to some other schools. But for high school, I went to a small all girls Catholic school, and then I went on to Catholic University, St. Joseph's University. Go Hawks.
Okay. Yep.
Um, Graduated from there with a degree in political science. And kind of originally, I started off when I left school in HR and human resources
Okay.
and worked in like a couple food service and restaurant companies and things like that until I eventually started my own business and event planning.
Okay. And what I know volunteering is a big part of what you do. When did that start, and kind of like how did you get into volunteering?
Yeah, I think so. I've always kind of like been into that. Like even in high school, I was in the community service corps. In college, I was like involved in some volunteer stuff as well as like was involved in other like student organizations. So I think I've always liked the sense of community and also giving back and things like that. I started to do it. I would say in a more organized, or I don't want to say I don't. Let me see, I can't find my words. But when I, after school, once I kind of got into working, one of the first organizations that I kind of became formally a part of was I was a founding member of the Young Friends for Episcopal Community Services. And so Episcopal Community Services has been around for 100 years, but they wanted at that time to try to like engage younger
Right. Right.
people, and hopefully maybe those people maybe would be in the board on the board in the future. And so that was kind of I first started there, and then I became a part of. I guess what was the next thing? I guess the next thing I did was I started like being a part of committee member for the Monkey and the Elephant.
What is? I need to know the name. What's the name? What's the deal with the name?
The Monkey and the Elephant. Oh my goodness! I better tell this story right, or they're gonna get me. So I mean, I'll give the quickest version to it is that the founder of the Monkey and the Elephant, Lisa, at one point had traveled to Africa. I'm not sure what part, so we'll just say the continent of Africa. She met someone there, and they stayed in touch even when she came back to the States.
Sure.
And I think she would try to help them in any way that she could. And so the monkey and the elephant were basically code words that they would say to let the other person know it's safe to talk and speak freely. And
Oh,
so, yeah, so
I like that.
that's the inspiration for the monkey and the elephant thing.
Okay. All right. I saw that name and I was like, I'm gonna have to ask
Yeah,
where that
yeah.
came from.
So it's a nonprofit coffee shop. I know we're Philadelphia's first. We might be the nation's first. Who knows? But
Wow.
we are a nonprofit coffee shop, and we employ aged out foster care youth primarily.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it's just about helping them and helping bridge the gap from them being in the system all these years and then now needing to really be on their own and have some professional development and help. And we, when they're in the program, they work at the coffee shop, they get paid, but they also have their car fare covered and other
hmm
services as well as we have Kayla who does programming, who's an MSW, so she can help. She helps them with anything from housing to whatever they kind of need. And so I've been involved in that for like 3 years, and I'm coming up on my second year as the actual executive board chair of the organization. So that's super exciting. We have a newer executive director, Kamal Merrill, who was previously, he worked at PEC.
hmm
Um, and so now he's on board. And so, yeah, I love that work, love working with them. I love the mission. And I also like, as I said, the sense of community and helping create that for our participants who maybe lack that at times because they were in and out of the foster care system.
Right.
And then the other organization I'm involved in is called Reads Global. And Reads Global is a global board. We're all over the world, and we basically help. But the term library is used, but they're much more than that. They're centers, and they're in Nepal, India, and Bhutan.
Mm-hmm.
And these are like community centers in some of these small towns. These may be the only places where these people can have internet, or maybe they can take classes. They can get small grants to help them fund like smaller businesses, particularly women businesses and things like that. There's STEM programs for the children and young girls, and there's a whole slew of things. So those are the two main organizations right now that I volunteer with is Reads Global and the Monkey and the Elephant. But I'm always getting involved in something.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the monkey and the elephant, do you, as like kind of the executive chair, are you kind of running it as a business, like dealing with supply and dealing with, sales and marketing? Like, what is your role there? I'm curious how a non-profit coffee shop functions.
Yeah. So so basically as the board chair, we have an executive director, and so like really he's running the organization day to day. He's in charge. The board is there to help, and one of our biggest things is obviously helping to fundraise, but I guess in some ways also like just govern, make sure things do stay according to the mission and the bylaws and things like that. And so as the executive chair, I kind of look at it as like I'm there to support the executive director.
Mm-hmm.
However, if something unfortunately was to happen, I am a signer on the checks and things like that. So at times, I may have to kind of like step in and come into the shop or do things or whatever. But for the most part, the day to day is really ran by Kamal. And then we have how I like to look at it is like Kayla kind of is running the programming, so like the professional development and the nonprofit piece, and then we have Kayvon, who is our general manager, who really focuses on the business piece of the cafe operations and does all the training and things like that. So that's kind of how I look at how it's kind of split. So yeah, so
Okay,
I
that
don't have
makes
to
sense.
come in and make lattes.
Okay, I was gonna ask if you're like really good at drawing those, drawing
No, no,
stuff
no,
on
no,
there.
no,
No, all right.
no.
So was Pink Social the first business you created? I noticed you kind of went from St. Joe's, and you mentioned kind of going off and doing a couple things until you started your first business. Was Pink Social the first one?
No, so it's funny. I feel like I'm glad that I had the career path that I had, but I was always maybe meant to like own a business because my mom reminded me that like at a very young age I would like make homemade Play-Doh and like bag it up and sell it, or I would sell my extra snacks at school
Right,
to the
right.
kids there and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And so I always had like a lot of different ideas. I had a cupcake business as an adult at one point. Like I made like really pretty decorated cupcakes.
Okay.
I was doing that. I also own another like craft business where I make like ties and bow ties and headbands, like textile things. And
Mm-hmm.
during COVID, me and a fellow classmate from St. Joe's like did like over 1,000 masks for different hospitals and
Wow.
doctors and
Yeah.
things in the area.
Mm-hmm.
So Pink Soul Straight is definitely not my first business. I've
Okay.
made cupcakes. I've done, like I said, I had still the textile business. I was a nanny, which people don't think about that, but you're really owning your own somewhat childcare. But that's how I felt because I had
Yeah.
clients. I had multiple clients that I would come and watch their kids and stuff like that. So,
Right.
and then I always planned events. Even when I was in HR, I was still planning events on the side.
Okay. So where do you attribute your entrepreneurial bug? Does that come from somebody in your family, or would you just kind of get that over time?
I don't really know. My parents that raised me, neither of them are necessarily entrepreneurs, but creatives. And so I think that I definitely got the creative bug. I think I was raised by technically by my grandparents, and so They're not, it's a little different for them. Like us millennials, we're like, I'm going to start a business, and my parents are like, like
Right.
they have a job they had jobs with unions and pensions and things like that.
Yep.
So it was a little different, but they still were creative. My dad still sang in a band on the side, and he,
Mm-hmm.
was an artist, and my mom was very creative too, and like the interior design and stuff like that. So, and then my biological mom was very creative as well. So I definitely got the creative bug, but I didn't necessarily have a lot of entrepreneurs in my family.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, and
I think that's attributed to my generation and being a millennial more than
I
anything.
hadn't thought about it that way, but it's very interesting you put it that way. Because there certainly was like the traditional, like you said, 9 to 5. You get your pension, you get your whatever. You're part of a union, and like it doesn't exist in the same capacity anymore. And
Yeah.
people are, and I would assume that it's probably the easiest at any point in human history right now, or, probably every day it gets easier to start your own business. I mean, there's a million ways to do it. And like you said, maybe it is because we're millennials. I think I'm right there with you somewhere. I think I'm on the high end of being a millennial. I don't feel like I'm a millennial. I think I'm like an old head millennial, but I think I'm still in the bucket. So talk to me a little bit about so you kind of did some creative agency, I call it agency, creative, business stuff. When did you kind of tie it all together and formalize it a little more into something like Pink Social? And was that the first, we'll call it more like, more structured kind of business that you built?
Yeah, so the first structure, I guess, would have been the Pink Lapel, which was the textile one. That
Okay.
was the first one I actually got
Okay.
an LLC
Yeah.
for and everything like that, and filed like official paperwork.
Yeah.
And Pink Social Strategies actually legally operates as a DBA under the Pink Lapel, which is the umbrella LLC. So,
Okay.
so that was the first the first business I started. But Pink Social Strategies even had, like, I want to say, multiple iterations. So like I said, came out of HR in like 2016. I kind of left it, wasn't really sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to be a little more creative. And at that time, wasn't necessarily like set on having my own business full time. I wasn't sure about that, but I knew I wanted to get a different job doing something else. So for a while, I went back to some skills I had from college and was like, I'll nanny until I figure it out. And I was getting
Mm-hmm.
married, so it worked out. And so I did that for a little bit, and then I then started kind of getting like some little like contract jobs. Like I worked briefly for a little bit for Rakia Reynolds at Sky Blue Media, doing like some. I kind of assist her on her speaking engagements and would kind of like travel with her sometimes. And I did that for her for a little bit, and then I started working for another consulting firm, and that firm did multiple things, but one of the things was events. And so eventually I started taking the lead a lot of times on the events or whatever, because that was kind
Mm-hmm.
of, I guess, my niche. And so after doing that for a little bit, I think I was with maybe like 2 years or something like that. I decided to go off on my own business because I think I kind of wanted to. Well, one thing was I kind of wanted to work with a different type of client than what that firm normally worked with or attracted, so to speak.
Sure.
So that's how I kind of ended up going out on my own. Again, initially when I left that firm, I applied to jobs, and then when jobs that I really wanted I didn't get or whatever, I was like, I'm just gonna like do this on my own. And so initially I thought I was gonna start a social media company, which is why it was Pink Social Strategies, because I really was like, that was kind of like really, I mean, it's something now, but at that time you're thinking like 2017, it was like really like a
Right.
big heyday with all this new stuff going
Mm-hmm.
on. And I was like, oh, I really want to like do social media for other people. And so that's kind of initially what it started out as, but then I don't know, I don't really know how I transitioned on, but I don't know, I realized that, hey, you're an event planner and you love to do this and you're good at this, why are you starting a social media
Right. Right. Well, I mean, I think that happens to everybody. Is you at least it doesn't sound like you're destined to work a 9 to 5 for somebody for sure. Just
company?
based off your your drive to own a business. So you mentioned having a niche. What is your niche now? And maybe that was different than when you started, or when you kind of spun off on your own thing. Like, what would you consider your niche is today for your business?
When you say that, you mean like who's like like who's like what's a similar characteristic that a lot of my clients have?
Yeah, who do you serve with your business, and what makes you what makes them kind of a target for you? Like if
Yeah.
I was to say who is a good potential client for you, what would that bucket of companies or people consist of?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely changed over time. In the beginning, it was, I think it would have been like clients in the tech and innovation space, and then like a little bit of like nonprofits, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And then for a while, I felt it was because it all kind of happens because of the referral process, really. Because like I can plan an event for anybody, it doesn't really, so to speak, as long as you're someone who, well, I'll get to that, but I can plan an event for anyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what brings back to like, which I won't go into because I'm sure that's a question later on, my first clients, and
Mm-hmm.
then who they were, and then who they essentially started to refer me to were people in the similar space. And so in an accidental way, those almost became my niches for a little bit.
Sure.
Fast forward to today, that's not necessarily the case. I really kind of do have a wide variety of clients from nonprofit and for-profit businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that now I am starting to work with, which is great, a lot more Black-owned companies.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's awesome, but still it varies a lot. Because there's fundraiser events, and then there's customer appreciation events and development events, and then as I had shared with you a little bit earlier, then I started getting clients that wanted me to kind of lead more of like a digital communications type of thing for them rather than events, because I had did that for some of my event clients, and they were like, well, why can't you just do this for me? And at first I
Right.
was resistant to that. I'm like, no, this is my niche. I'm an events company. And then it was just like, why are you passing up these checks? Number one, and number two, like you like to do both, so why can't you do both?
Right. And would you say that is kind of still carried on today? You're doing both for both types of event planning and the digital side of things for people?
Yeah, I would say yeah, I still do both. Now, I will say that I like to do digital communications focused around like events per se. Like
Okay.
when you're building up to a larger event, a
Mm-hmm.
festival or something like that. I
Right.
really like that project-based work because you do it and you really see your result like at the end. You can package it up pretty, and here's my outgoing report of everything that I accomplished, and like that type of thing. But I am starting to get more people who want me to stay on a little more like ongoing or like
Mm-hmm.
longer term projects where they want like 6 to year month like contracts. So
Right. Um, so what would you say um, you know, it sounds like you got a lot going on, and it sounds like it was kind of a natural progression to where you ended up, what you're doing today. Um, what would you say held you back from kind of what you're doing today? Doing the event planning, doing the things you really, are good at. Was that, just having to experience the different things and figuring out what you were really good at? I'm not going to say what took you so long, but I mean, what kind of led up to, you figuring out all these pieces to the puzzle?
um I think that it progressed the way it should have. I think that, well, first of all, when I finished college, it was 2008, 2009. It was the middle of a recession. So you just
Yep.
took whatever job you could get. And so when I first finished, I took a job at Aramark, and it happened to be in HR, and I was like, cool, whatever, I'm with it. Because I just wanted a job at the time.
Right.
And so again, when you talk about falling into these accidental niches, once you kind of get into that, it's hard to get out of it. And so I did HR for there, and then I went to another company, and then from there I went to another company, kind of doing similar roles, HR, payroll, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it was important though, because that working in HR, you learn how to create processes. You
Right.
have to, you know how to write an SOP, you know how to do these things. And so I think that it's helpful. Not
Mm-hmm.
that I necessarily have all this stuff right now for my own business, but I know how to.
Right. Yep.
And I can do it for other clients and things like that. And so originally, like I said, I always had this entrepreneurial spirit. I thought that I was going to do like an HR consulting firm when I
Right.
first started
Yeah.
my job.
Yeah.
It was a very specific niche, not only working in HR, but working in the food services business. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yep.
And so, So, I mean, I guess that's really kind of how I got on this path, is because number one, I just needed a job when I got out of college. And then number two, a lot of these fun majors, they didn't exist when I was in school. St. Joe's did not have a, entrepreneurial degree or a program or social media or a digital marketing certificate. These majors that all these young people get to do now, we didn't, especially me going to this smaller school. Maybe Temple had some of it.
Right.
But at St. Joe's, we didn't even have those majors. So I just wanted to, I thought I wanted to be an attorney. So I majored in political science originally, and just, it got so far into the major, it would have made me graduate too late if I would have tried to switch. I just went with it. So it was a lot of just like going with it until I was kind of forced to figure it out,
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And like you said, I think your origin story, or the genesis of how you got to where you are, does make a lot of sense. And Lord knows that HR is full of processes. For better or for worse, it's full of a lot of processes. And kind of a similar, like, related question, and this, kind of ties back to the theme of the podcast in general, is, if you had to do it all over again, and you got to start fresh, knowing all the things you know today, what would be your first step in starting Pink Social Strategies today, or whatever, but whatever version of the company, you would want to start again? What would that be? What's step one?
Step one, I think, would be to do like, you're the business canvas or whatever.
Yep.
Doing like a business camp, because listen, I'm not typing up any long business plan. Like, that's for the birds.
Yep.
But just to sit down and something, especially because I'm a visual, doing the business canvas would have been, I think, great. I think also, once I started my business, just letting people know that I was starting it. I think for so long I was kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, maybe shy, or not necessarily like insecure, but just quietly operating a business, and like people didn't know what I was doing. You know what I mean? I kind of was like, oh, I have my little clients and they're referring me, but I wasn't going to grow or scale if I didn't put myself out there and get on LinkedIn and post videos of me acting like I know what I'm talking about. No, I really do know what I'm talking about. Those kind of things, and posting and putting myself out there and writing and stuff like that. So I would have, maybe put it out there sooner to like people, like, hey, I'm starting this business, and been like, making the hard ass. You need help with the fence. You need this.
Right.
Because in the beginning I was very like shy about that. And I think I would do that. What did I say? So the business canvas, put it out there. And I think I would, I think that's kind of like it.
Those are great answers. Those are great. I mean,
and then make sure that you get I did that from the beginning, but your LLC, whatever, incorporating whatever, protect yourself, your business.
It's such an easy thing to do too. It's not like this big scary process. Like, it's just
no.
Like,
and my husband actually owns a company. That's what they do. They help businesses do formation.
Not everybody's husband can do that, but it is. I use a company, I think, called Northwest Agency or something, and they just, you give them what you want to do and they fill out all the stuff for you. But one thing I did, they kind of rung true to me. Do you think kind of some of your hesitance initially was because you didn't want to come off as a salesperson? You didn't want to be annoying, and you didn't, and that was something, I mean, I've been running my business for years. And people would say, "Oh, were you the salesman for your company?" I'm like, "No, I'm not a salesman." Like, that's like, you list the 5 things that you think a salesman is. I saw it somewhere the other day. It's like annoying, pest, this, and I think was that. Do you think kind of allowing yourself to be a salesman for your company was a big part of you kind of growing and scaling your business up?
Yeah, I think that like all the time, like I'll go to like networking events and things like that. And sometimes like if my husband went with me, like he would point out like I am a great connector, right? Mm-hmm. I will connect other people and I will have no issue with not pushing, but telling all about this person was this great event or these people. And then would be very uncomfortable with making or putting myself out there because yes, I didn't want to be salesy. And it wasn't until, I think one of the things that made me less shy about being salesy, honestly, was having a baby. And I say that because when you realize, how much they cost, and B, you're looking at like the certain life that you want to provide for them, you're like, I got to stop playing. You know what I'm saying? And so, it's that's helped me. And then also, I ended up getting a virtual assistant.
Yep.
And so I started having her like edit my videos and things like that. And she would always put something at the end, like, you need help with, events, ask us or contact us this way. And I'd be like, oh, I don't think you need that last slide in there. She'd be like, yes, you do. What are you putting this content out here for if you're not going to actually, have an action to follow it? And I think also, one of my friends that I work with a lot and like it helps me a lot in business, my friend Antoinette, she is like a digital strategist, like she's the bomb. I just aged myself by saying the bomb, but anyway,
I think it's coming back. I think it's coming back.
Yeah, when we have worked with clients together, she's always asking like, "What's your ask? What's your end goal?" You know what I mean, and put that out there. What is your action for everyone? And my action is to hire me and let me help you with your events or your digital comms. So I realized like I needed to put that out there, but it wasn't. I didn't get and I'm not saying I'm 100% comfortable with it, but I didn't get somewhat comfortable with it until like maybe the last like two years or so.
Okay. So business canvas, form an LLC, and have a baby are the ways to to really scale your business up. For everybody who's watching, those are all great things, and I have 5 reasons to really scale my business up with all my kids. So yes, I can say that certainly having other people depend on you, will get your ass in gear sometimes. So that does bring us to the question of the day. Who was your first customer? It does not have to be an actual name, but who were they generally, and how did you get them?
Yeah. So it's kind of weird. I know I'm cheating, but I really had 2 first customers.
All right, I like it.
Literally signed on within like the same week or so. So I'm trying to think which one actually came first. Oh, you know what? So the first one is Episcopal Community Services.
Okay.
So my husband actually at the time was husband's name is James or Jimmy or whatever. So at the time, James was the workforce development director at Episcopal Community Services, and so that's how I kind of got linked to that. Remember, I was like saying I was with the young friends and all that kind of stuff. And so I was like, from me even before they even had young friends, I was volunteering through my husband's department and coming in and helping with different things. So I knew the whole staff. And so the comms, I think she was like the comms director or chief of comms. That's what Molly was. Okay. So what happened was basically Chris, who I knew, had to leave or whatever, and he went to law school, and so he used to handle a lot of their events. He was an in-house, like he was a full-time person, and so Molly, this job opening came up, and Molly had mentioned it to James, like, "Oh, do you think your wife would want to apply?" And so then when he came home, I said, I was like, "Oh, wow." And then I met with her and I was like, "You know what? I don't want to apply. I've already decided in my mind I'm starting my own business. So you can be my client, and here's how it's going to be better for you, because you're not going to pay for my health insurance. You're not going to pay for my computer. You're not going to, there's all these things you're not going to have to take into consideration. Yep. And so you're going to save money." And I knew that they had a decent budget because they had budgeted to pay a whole salary for someone.
Right. Yep.
So, I went and I put together a proposal, submitted the proposal, it got approved, and then, it got accepted. So they were technically my first client.
Okay.
They are the first client, but I always feel like I have 2 because at the same time, technically had become a client in a similar way like week, because they too had an opening in their events department. And I had applied to the events job a while ago, and so they came back and said, Chris asks, "Oh, are you still interested in this?" And I was like, again, no. I'm starting my own business, as I said before, and so I'd be happy to have you come on as a client. And so I think I signed the deal with both of them like the same week, and it was. Yeah, it was crazy, right? Looking back at it, like when you're going through things, you don't realize how like blessed and fortunate, how big it is. Because at the time, I was just like, I was excited, but yeah, so like I started working with both of them, which honestly, in Philadelphia are both like pretty big like powerhouses,
Yeah,
like technically, founded for the Philly Tech Week, and ECS here is like it's not a small nonprofit. They have
right.
like, over 100 employees, $9 million endowment, like,
Mm-hmm.
so those were like my first clients. Yeah.
That's awesome. That is so. Just get married to the person that's going to be your first client and have a baby to scale your business. It's all coming back to family. It sounds like. So let's switch gears a little bit. So you have. We were just talking about it before this. A 1 year old, and obviously we all want to be around for our kids as long as possible. What are three kind of health regiments or tips or things that you kind of try to, even if it's not every day or it's a goal of yours, what are things you're working towards health wise to kind of keep yourself around for a while?
Um, Health wise, I would say, I try to do like a quick like. I notice I sleep a lot better if I do like a quick virtual yoga class
Okay. Yep.
evening. It's like 12 minutes, I think it is, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So I try to do that. I'm going back to working out with a trainer in May. I was doing that for a while, and then I took a break after I had the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And then one thing that I find like super helpful is like going to the chiropractor
Yeah.
and also massages too.
Yes. All great things. I need a
Yeah.
massage. My mother-in-law bought me I was telling her I wanted to do the float spa thing. Have you ever heard of that? Where you like you
I heard of it, but I haven't been
No,
yet.
I haven't been yet. I still have the gift certificate somewhere. I'm gonna definitely try that too. But I love the massage and the chiropractor. I think the chiropractor get a bad rap as being like the quack doctor that didn't finish doctor school. But I think they're very very important,
Oh, they
especially
do. They
yeah.
definitely do. But it was how I did the chiropractor the whole time that I was pregnant, and it was like really really helpful. But it definitely my doctors were definitely like, what are you doing that for?
Right.
They
Yeah.
didn't understand it at all. But I found it to be super helpful. So
I've always had back things, so I've always been a huge proponent of the chiropractor, and it's definitely gotten me through times where like I was locked up and feeling like I couldn't move. Definitely gets the blood flowing. So mystery question time. I should have like a cool sound effect. Maybe I'll put it in post. I'll like do
yeah.
something like mystery question. Um, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Now it's a very open-ended question, and it could be anything you want to do physically, altruistically, anything on your list. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? I've thought of giving examples, but then I thought that would be leading the witness too much. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna let it float out
Yeah.
there.
I mean, right
And
now I'm thinking of like because we're talking about work, so I'm thinking of work. So right now, of something that I could do that I knew I couldn't fail, I would probably create my own like conference or festival type of
all right,
situation.
that's a beautiful one. That's
Yeah, like
fantastic. That's a new
something, a
one.
large scale event like a South by Southwest or a
Yeah.
Coachella or a something like that. I would create my own version
All
of.
right, that is my new favorite. I have not heard that one. That's a cool one because uh the likelihood of that failing is potentially high. So
Exactly. That's why it's like if I knew I wouldn't fail because there's so much money involved.
yes, no, that's a great. You want to be the Fire Festival Part 3 or whatever because they're doing Part 2. I heard
I just
they're.
yeah.
I saw
I
that.
give them a hard time believing they're really
Where's
gonna
Ja
fly.
Rule at? He's probably rolling over in his grave. He's not dead, but wherever he is, I'm probably gonna make some
I'm sure
money
he's
off
real
it.
upset.
I'm sure he probably doesn't even know what's going on. Um, well, let's end it there. This was fantastic. I really love, you're very obviously caring, giving person. You're a very driven person. You've got a lot of cool connections to folks around the city. I really thank you for your time today, and I think people will be hearing more and more about you. And anybody is trying to reach you, how do they find you?
They can find me on pretty much every social media platform, but they can find me on LinkedIn as April M. Burks. They can
Okay.
also find me on Instagram, also at April Burks on Instagram, as well as uh, Instagram for the company is PNK Strategies. That's
Okay.
the Instagram handle. Um, and yeah, you can always go to my website, pinksoulstrategies.com. If you want to schedule a discovery call, a meeting, or whatever, you can do it right from the website.
And that reminds me, I should you'll be the first person that I'll have send me all. Have you send me all those links to things that I'll put in the the little
Oh,
description
in
of
the
the
description. Yeah.
description of the video, and I'll put it
Yeah.
in the audio links as well. So this was fantastic, April. Thank you so much for hopping on. You were an awesome guest, and enjoy the rest of spring before it gets too hot around here. And I hope you have a good rest of your week. All right.
You too. Bye
All right.
bye.
Thanks, April. See ya.